Hello, I am Professor Chandana Goswami from Tezpur University, and today I am here to introduce you to this exciting world of management. We'll start with a few definitions. The first one talks of management as a process of designing and maintaining an environment in which individuals working together in groups efficiently accomplish selected aims. So you can understand from this that we are talking of management as a process where we are trying to create a work environment where teams can accomplish the organizational goals. The second definition talks about a manager carrying on with the basic functions of management, that is planning, organizing, staffing, leading and controlling. And you must keep in mind that management is applicable for any kind of organization, whether it's a manufacturing unit, whether it is a service organization, a non-governmental organization, or a charitable organization, or hospital, or even the Indian Army. Everybody needs management. And our aim is to create surplus. Then there are some terms which we use over and over again in management. So let's understand that a little bit. The first one is productivity, where we are talking of a ratio, output by input. And as you can understand that it is necessary to have the output greater than the input. Only then we can say that we are productive. The second one is effectiveness, where we are talking of doing the right thing. And third is efficiency, where we talk of doing things right. As a manager, you will require these 4 skill sets: technical, human, conceptual, and the design skill. As you start your career, the technical skill is the first one that you will require. And here we are talking of your knowledge, that whatever you've learnt in your campus. We are talking of the skill sets that you have developed. We are talking of your ability to be proficient in the activities, methods, processes, procedures of the workplace. As you move up in the hierarchy, you will now start leading a group of people. You will have subordinates under you, and that is where your ability to work with people will matter. This is referred to as the human skill. The third is the conceptual skill. You are going to be the top boss of your organization, and it is here you must understand what is the role of your organization in the entire industry, and finally how you are going to contribute to the economic growth of the country. The fourth one is called the design skill, which is creative problem solving. And irrespective of any level in the hierarchy, you will be able to use it, whether it is in the technical field or managing people or in the conceptual field. Let me introduce you to a few management thinkers. We have Fayol, who was from France. You have Taylor, Govt, Munsterberg, Gilbreth, they are from US. Also you have Mayo and Barnard. In case you are wondering why so many from the US, we need to keep in mind that at that point of time, US had the railroads. It had the steel manufacturing units. So therefore, all management thoughts graduated from there. Let me introduce you to Frederick Winslow Taylor. He is referred to as the father of scientific management. His entire career was in Midvale Steel Works, where he started from the bottom of the hierarchy as an apprentice, and he worked his way up to the chief manager of that organization. And by virtue of his experience in that organization, he got a lot of management insights, which he later gave it to us. Taylor had observed that all things were running on an unscientific basis. You know, the traditional way of working was continuing. There was no scientific reasoning or basis as to what is the amount of work that an average worker should be able to do. So he decided that no, it's time we replace the rule of thumb with science, and he also wanted people to work as a team. So therefore he brought about the concept of having harmony in group action. He talked about having cooperation instead of chaotic individualism. And please also keep in mind that this was an era where jobs were very scarce. So any worker who came in for the day to work would actually leave a part of the job unfinished, so that the next day when he comes back, he has something to work on. And in that sense, there was restricted output. But then Taylor said that we have to now work for maximum output rather than the restricted output. At that point of time, there was no concept of developing or training the workers, and again, Taylor stressed on that. Since he is talking of using scientific standards or scientific basis for measuring standards, creating benchmarks, he did this time and motion study, and with the help of which he could formulate that what is the average amount of work that an average healthy person should be able to do. And that is how you have the concept of a fair day's wage for a fair day's work. Now we understand that an average worker will give you an average output. But what about those people who can perform better than the average? That is where Taylor said that we will have a differential piece rate system, which means that if you work better than the average worker, you will be given higher wages. But then Taylor was also criticized. He was seen to be exploitative. People criticized him for treating man like a machine. They said that financial incentive cannot be the only motivator for human beings. And also they questioned that why are workers not involved in planning? Again, it is the context which matters. At a time when jobs are scarce, I feel that financial incentive is the only motivator. And also the workers at that point of time were not very literate and not very skilled. So therefore, it will actually not make sense to have workers involved in the planning part. Let's move to the next person. He is Henry Fayol. He worked in France, same time as Taylor was in US, and he is referred to as the father of modern management. You can see that in Henry Fayol divided industrial activities into 6 parts. First is the technical, where we are talking of operations. Second is commercial, where we are talking of buying of raw materials, selling of the finished goods. Third is the financial, that is the amount of financial resources that you will have to raise. Fourth is security, where we are talking of ensuring the entire workplace. Fifth is accounting, where we are keeping record of transactions. And sixth is the managerial activities, which he again divided into these 5 things from which we have the 5 functions of management. That is planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. Fayol also gave us 14 principles. And as I elaborate these principles, you will understand the relevance that it still holds today. Number 1 is division of work. Try to visualize an automobile manufacturing unit where you have one unit who is looking into the preparation of the chassis, one is doing the engines, one is doing the body parts, one is doing the welding, another one is doing the painting, and finally you assemble everything and you have your vehicle ready. So this is referred to as division of work. He also talked about authority and responsibility. If a person is given authority, that person should be held responsible for the job. But you cannot hold somebody responsible if you have not given the person authority. Number 3 is discipline. Yes, all of us have to maintain a discipline in the workplace because we are working as a group, we cannot have our individual preferences taking a priority out here. Number 4 is unity of command. Fayol said that all instructions, all commands must come from a single source. Number 5 is unity of direction. All the small units of the organization must work together in a synchronized manner and try to achieve the goal of the organization. 6 is subordination of individual interest to general interest. Yes, we agree that all individuals are important, but whenever there is a conflict, it is the organizational goal which will take a priority over individual goals. Number 7 is remuneration. When we are working, we expect that we will be compensated for the work that we have done, and that is why we receive a remuneration in the form of salaries and wages. Number 8 is centralization or decentralization. Fayol said depending in the context in which the organization is operating, that organization will adopt centralization or decentralization, and each of them has its own pros and cons. Number 9 is the scalar chain. We are talking of a hierarchy, and we see that it is the commands and instructions that flow from the top to the bottom, and it is the information and reporting that goes from bottom to top. That is referred to as a scalar chain. Number 10 is order. Here we are talking of order in the workplace, where we talk of putting our machines in the right place, the tools that we use back to where it is supposed to be, and maintain a orderly work environment. Number 11 is equity. Equity is not equality. Consider two people who have joined the organization on the same date, but the person who has come in with work experience is definitely going to get a higher salary than the one with a little bit of less work experience or no work experience. So here we are being equitable. Number 12 is stability of tenure. Fayol said that the workers' jobs must be permanent in nature. If the jobs are assured jobs, there is going to be less of anxiety and people will work more productively. Number 13, initiative. Here he encouraged all workers, managers, all employees to offer suggestions, take initiatives in improving productivity. And the last one, where we are talking of unity, is strength. It means that we have to work as a team, and then only we can achieve our organizational goals. So that was about Fayol's 14 principles. We have other management thinkers also. You have Henry Gantt. He followed Taylor's scientific method. He gave us the Gantt chart, and today we have the PERT and CPM, which is used in all project management. He also introduced the concept of incentives. You have this husband-wife couple who also started with the scientific management, but then Lillian Gilbreth was also an industrial psychologist, so she became interested in the human aspects of work, and a little bit of behavioral component got introduced. Then there is another trained psychologist and a doctor, Hugo Munsterberg. He also introduced the behavioral component in management. So he applied psychology in industrial activity, where he is trying to match the mental qualities of the worker with the work that is assigned. He also talked in terms of giving the psychological conditions needed for the best output, and was interested in mutual benefit of both managers and workers. Then we have Elton Mayo and Roethlisberger. They conducted the study which initially started as a scientific study, but then it later turned out to be otherwise, and this is the turning point in the history of management where the behavioral component came across very, very strongly. So they started with a scientific experiment where they're trying to find out that if you change the physical working conditions, will it affect productivity? Our natural assumption is that if the physical working conditions are good, productivity should increase. If the physical working conditions are bad, productivity should decrease. But they did not get the results as expected. In fact, this research was dropped halfway, and then it took many months of thinking over it, and then finally they found out that productivity was independent of any changes in the workplace. It depends on other social factors like morale of the workers, satisfactory relationship, what kind of relationship they have with their supervisors and co-workers, sense of belongingness, and effective management. We will now move into different managerial roles played by managers in the organization, and this is given by Munsterberg. So he talked of three kinds of roles. One is the interpersonal role, second is the informational role, and third is the decision role. In the interpersonal role, you will have three kinds of people, managers. The first one is the figurehead, who is the face of the organization and does most of the ceremonial work associated with the organization. Today also, if we talk of the Tata Group, the first picture that comes to our mind is Ratan Tata. If you talk of the Wipro Group, the first person who comes to our mind is Azim Premji. So they are figureheads. Then you have the manager as a leader who is leading a team of workers, inspiring them to achieve organizational goals. The third is the liaison role, where you interact with the external world and you talk about the organization. So you see these examples of spokespersons who's doing PR work, who's communicating with the external stakeholders. The second category is called informational roles. Every manager receives information from one end, so therefore is a recipient. This information has to be disseminated and distributed, so therefore is a disseminator, and also acts as a spokesperson for a certain group of people or for the organization. The third category is the decision roles that a manager plays. Whenever there is a conflict in the organization, the manager comes in as a disturbance handler. He or she is the one who listens to both sides of the conflict and then comes to a decision which both parties will have to abide. Then we are all familiar with the concept of budget. So there are different departments which are asking for budget, and the finance department now becomes the resource allocator. So the finance department has to take a decision as to who is going to get how much. Now these departments may not really be very happy with the allocation, so therefore they start negotiating in the hope of getting a little more. Therefore that's the negotiator role. Finally, within the organization, sometimes it happens that we take up a new product or a process or a project. So therefore there's a little bit of risk involved out there, and hence that role is defined as an entrepreneurial role, and people who act as entrepreneurs within the organization are also known as intrapreneurs. So these are the different roles that a manager plays. Finally, we understand that the organization does not exist in isolation. It is a part of the larger environment. And in this external environment, you have factors like economic, political, legal, ethical, social, technological, each one of them having an impact on the organization. Let's have a look In the economic scenario, you have things like capital, labor, price level, tax policy, then customers. They all have an impact on the organization. For example, if you take the price level, if the cost of your raw materials increase, it is evident that your cost of production will go up, and which is going to be reflected in your selling price and which is going to affect your demand. Then you come to technological. We understand that technology is moving at a very fast speed, so there is a lot of upgradation which happens, and sometimes it is not possible that you keep changing your technology every year as and when it happens. So under those circumstances, maybe as a manager, you would rather prefer taking the equipment on lease than buying it. Because if it's on lease, the moment the technology changes, you can cancel your lease and take another upgraded equipment. Then we have the social factors, where we are talking of attitudes and beliefs. Till date, there is a group of people, a section of customers who will still not have mushrooms, because mushrooms are seen as something which does not really fit into our food habits. We treat it as kind of poisonous maybe. We may be wrong in our perception, but that is our belief. Then you have the political and legal environment. You must also understand that with every change in government, there is change in rules and regulations and policies which will impact the organization. Plus, we have now become very conscious and we have very strict anti-pollution laws in practice, which the company has to abide by. There is no choice out here. Last is the ethical part, where we are talking of social responsibility of business. And this is here where the business has to play a greater role in the context of the society. And social responsibility is just not confined to adopting a village or providing clean drinking water. It could also mean that you are delivering what you had promised. You are ethical in your dealings with all your stakeholders. So with this, we conclude our session, and I hope that you've got insight into this wonderful world of management and would like to take it up as a career. Thank you.